Hello and welcome back. So decided to make some video on Aruba Mobility. I have cleared my Aruba Certified Mobility Associate during 2020 lockdown, and very recently I've cleared my Aruba Certified Mobility Professional exam. And during this time I read the book cover to cover. And well, I decided to make a video about my experience on the exam as well as provide you with the bullet points, the main points that you should remember to for your exam as well as for your knowledge to deliver Aruba Mobility solution for your customers. A quick disclaimer, this is not Aruba authorized study material for the exam. This is purely for educational purposes and to grow your knowledge regarding Aruba Mobility deployment. Do not use the settings shown in this video in the production environment because every environment is different and exact configuration may cause downtime in your production environment. So use this to just grow your knowledge and troubleshooting skill with Aruba Mobility solutions. Good thing that you can download all the necessary file to create your own lab to practice Aruba certifications. Aruba makes it very easy to download their Mobility Master or Mobility Controller virtual images and deploy it on your either workstation or ESXi. That's exactly what I have done, you can see. And end goal would be to even go further to be a Aruba certified ClearPass professional. Let's head over to asp.arubanetworks.com. All right, software and documents. Let's pick the softwares. You can just type in MM and go scroll down. Here you could see, okay, this is the file. I do have Aruba MM8711 OVA. You can download that one. And then later on, you can download the VMC. Down here, okay, same file in the VMC OVA format. Let's get those downloaded. Now you would need an active support contract to download this. Now I work for a value-added reseller, VAR, in the Nashville, Tennessee region, so I do have access to this. You might want to research how to get this file if you do not have an Aruba product as well as you're not part of partner. And your region may have a partner that you can get hold of, and they can assign you this OVA. So I guess something you have to figure it out yourself. Let's go ahead and deploy our OVA. So I have MM8503 version. I'll be installing that. Actually, 2 copies of it. Let's install it on disk 3. Recommended as thick provision lazy 0. Now, when you install this MM, you will see that 3 NICs are attached with these VMs. First one is for your management traffic. Second one is for your gig 00. You need to pay attention to that one because that's the one's they're gonna ask to assign IP during the initial configuration. So pay attention to that. The rest are those 2 that you may not even need for your labbing purposes. All right, just wanted to go over a few configuration. You can see these 3 adapters. First one is your management, second one is your G000. Pay attention to which one. This is my VM network configuration. Let me show you that. So vSwitch 0. So VM network is part of, this is it, VM network. All my Arubas are part of it, so let me show you the configuration. VM network says it's pretty much uh, ignore any untagged, just take the untagged traffic from the switch, which is my VLAN 15. Um, and then that next configuration is you need to pay attention is the security. Make sure the promiscuous mode, MAC address changes, and forge transmits are enabled and configured to be accept mode. If you go back to my main vSwitch, you will see that it is set to reject all those. And it's a particular VNIC level, and others take a look at this one. It's also not, it's taking the default one from vSwitch settings, but for this one, you will have to make those accept those settings because this 2mm would be part of a VRRP group to become an HA pair, and VRRP won't work if you don't have that setting. So it took a long time for me to figure that one out. So that's all for deploying your MMs. Let's go ahead and turn those on. I'm going to just show you one. The rest one would be identical. All right, so MM01 is ready. Let's go ahead and launch MM02. I'll pause the video when it's done. All right, MM02 is also ready for me to configure. Let me go ahead and show you my infrastructure of the lab design, what I'm trying to achieve here. So this is how I have my lab set up. I do have a pair of MM that we just installed. Um, Hold on. Yep, this is a pair of MM that I've just installed. These are the IPs. MM1 is 15.11, MM2 is 15.12, and they will create a VRRP HA group. IP for that would be 10. What happens that this is how we will be managing. 15.10, this is the IP. We will be managing both the cluster once they are in that group. But initially, I have to access both of them to get them configured. Initially console and then web GUI. So let's get that going. Here we are on MM01. Let's go with the prompt. Enter system name. That would be MM-01. Controller VLAN ID. You can leave it as it is. For me, it's 15, but you can just leave it by default. Now this is the G00. This is where your MM connects to your network, your switch. So that's the IP you want to give. Enter controller LAN port. That is G00. I want to configure. This is access. For now, it is an access. You can either type it in or hit enter. VLAN, so it's VLAN interface IP address. So what do you want to configure the IP on this one? So mine would be 92.168.15.11. Subnet mask is that. Gateway is 192.168.15.1. IPv6, I don't want to enable that. Country code is US. It's going to make you confirm. Next one is time zone. I'm just going to leave this as it is. I can configure that into the GUI. Time, don't worry about it. State that is correct. Admin, you want to set up the admin password. All of mine would be, let's see, Aruba123 for simplicity purposes. All right. I think I screwed that up. Aruba123. Aruba123. So just want you to verify all the configuration and type in yes to accept it. And it's going to go ahead and provision that and reload your MM1 last time. MM01 has come back up from the reload post configuration. So let's get going to configure that. 192.168.15.11. All right. Remember it was admin and Aruba123. All right, fantastic. As we can see under Mobility Master, we have MM01 here. Let's go ahead and do the same for MM02. To make this video short, I'll go ahead and get that done. And then, well, let me just go and show you the exact part, the configuration of IP and all that. MM02 is done. I'm just gonna log into the console, and then also this is how it shows my node. Let's go over to the browser and show you that. Over here, you can see MM01 and here MM02. They are individual instances right now. I'll go ahead and configure the VRRP for individual, and then you will see that on the VRRP IP, you will see both MM01 and MM02 shows up under Mobility Master. So the VRRP IP, remember 192.168.15.10. Let's get that going. So needless to say, all these roles that are performed by your MM, and you want to make sure they're highly redundant. That's why you do have a pair of virtual MM for my infrastructure that I'm using. You can get by with one, but you realize you lose that device, you lose all this feature. You cannot manage or configure anything further. With the virtual licensing, for the licensing, what happens that if you're buying one license for MM, a virtual mobility master, the second one comes free. So there you go. But for physical, you do have to count that as one unit and one box, and for which you have to license as well. So what they recommend that HA member of Mobility Masters to be on the same VLAN, a layer 2 broadcast domain, right? But later on, version 8.2, they have introduced the L3 MM redundancy model. Um, so they use VRRP, as I mentioned earlier, and by default, what they recommend you to disable VRRP preemption. I'll explain what is that. So let's jump on right to the lab. So let's configure our VRRP group. So need to realize this hierarchical model. Right now you see MM01 under Mobility Master. Now you have specific configuration here. If you do them, that gets pushed down to any member in that Mobility Master folder. So this is a folder. We have MM01 under it. And similarly, we have MM02 Mobility Master, and there's MM02 under this folder. So if you were to make a configuration here, it will push down here, and any other Mobility Masters in that group. So be careful, where are you making changes? 99.99% of chances you are making the configuration at the wrong level. So there are some specific configuration that you will be doing in the MM device level, and certain configuration you will be doing the Mobility Master folder level. So let's get going. MM01, I am configuring IP parameter and VRRP configuration. So MM01 and 02 become be in a VRRP group. So you go to configuration, you go to redundancy, and then virtual routing table redundancy. So L2, remember I was talking about L3 was later on introduced, so focus on L2. Both of my MM are on VLAN 15, so let's go ahead and add that configuration. So ID 9, just out of this 9 is fine. Description, I will say mm-vrrp. I'm going to use IPv4 authentication password Aruba123. This is the password your members will use to connect to each other. So IP address here, what they're asking is what would be your VRRP IP. So this is a specific VRRP configuration. So my VRRP high available IP would be 15.10. Priority, the default is 100. You want to make something higher than that. This is very important. I'm going to make MM1 201 and MM2 would be 101. This is just to, if mistakenly I've installed another MM in the same VLAN and I've configured VRRP without anything, that would be 100 and will not take over the configuration in my group. Needless to say, all the other configuration has to match. But I want to take a moment here to emphasize that if you were to install an MM with a higher priority, imagine you have an established MM HA MM group members, and you are creating a third one, maybe that for your lab or something, and you have that configured as 220. So guess what? This is going to be in the same VRRP group, and it will wipe out your configuration on the existing mobility master VRRP. So make sure, be careful with the priorities. The higher the priority, that will take over your VRRP group to be the active member. Okay, 1 second advertisements. I'm not going to enable preemption is because it is if some reason your active one is flapping, it will make your environment very unstable. Make that your admin state up and my 15 VLAN, that's what I'm using. Tracking is actually you can configure tracking with VRRP if you were to enable preemption, that comes handy. But for this demonstration video, I will leave them blank. So this is the configuration. I'll submit invalid VRRP ID. Oh, VLAN ID. That's 15. That's okay. Pending changes, deployed. All right, so same I need to configure for MM02. Redundancy. All right, 9 mm-VRRP. Aruba 123 all over. Okay, 1 and 2, 168.15.10. Priority 101. Okay, don't need that. Enable as 15. Submit. Pending changes. All right, so these are MM related configuration that I have done for individual MMs. Move on to the enabling the master redundancy. Now you specify that, okay, I need to create a HA pair from MM1 to MM2, give all the configuration because you have created the password for VRRP group, password for that. So you just need to configure your peer from one to another. All right. This is the ID. IP of the peer is 192.168.15. My peer, I am 11, so my peer would be 12. IPsec is Aruba 123, Aruba 123. Right, hit submit there. Still, I am making this configuration on the MM device level. All right, so let's go ahead and get the same configured. For 12, the peer is 11. All right, pending changes. So now we need to enable master redundancy. So they're both configured with what's needed. Let's go back here and, sorry, enable database synchronization. Right now they're both blank slate, so no specific configurations there apart from just the VRRP, right? So I'm going to go ahead and enable this. Let's see, 5 minute. Sorry, I'm at the MM02. All right, as soon as you make the configuration, your MM02 shows up here. I'm going to go ahead and enable synchronization, 5 minute. And as I say, this is going to push the configuration to one controller. So you cannot make any changes from the Mobility Master 2 on the Mobility Master 2 because the configuration then gets pushed. Let me show you some of the CLI commands. Show VRRP will show you the description. This is the master. Now take a look at this one, the virtual MAC address. Whoever is the active device will have this MAC address. The first 5 octet here, just same for both, and the last octet here denotes the virtual VRRP ID. And it is 15, as you see that the preemption is disabled and tracking is not enabled. Let's do the same. I wanted to show you so they both have the same virtual MAC address. This is the VRRP MAC address again. Let me also show you my switch. show IPR 1 and 2, 168.15.11. Now, as you can see, the MAC address is the MAC address for this VM. If I do the 10, you will see, okay, here you can see the MAC address. This is the VRP right now. It is hosted by the MM01, and something happens to that one, that MAC address will then be activated. Your MM02 will become active, and traffic for that MAC address will then go towards your MM02. All right, so we got up to this far. I think it's safe enough to pause this. This takes a little while, and the Mac, oh, there we go. MM02, MM01, they are group, and now we have a group of mobility masters. Any configuration you make at the mobility master folder level will then show up. Let me give you one example. You can still pull this one up. Say MM02, you can still have a way to make individual configuration. I want to show you uh, some of the system configuration, right? Um, how about DNS? Let's put one. Do we have DNS here? Domain name system. All right, let's take a look at this one. Right now, I don't have any specific DNS configured. I'm going to go and add 192.168.15.1. Submit that. Here it's going to push it down. Okay, let's refresh it. There it is. The configuration sync takes a little while, and it showed up 15.0, 15.1. So anything you make the configuration to the folder level again, then goes down to all the members. I think there is also a command that you can do on the CLI. Show database. Okay, so database synchronization. Yep, very well, and you need to probably remember part of it, that what all mobility master synchronizes, and it creates the IPsec tunnel between each other to synchronize it. There is a topic here in the book that talks about PAPI traffic versus IPsec traffic. Remember, BMC, virtual mobility controllers, uses PAPI to sync their information, whereas mobility master uses IPsec to sync their database to synchronize. So a few key points: that you enable VRRP into the MM level, and then you enable the master redundancy on the mobility master folder level, which enables it for both MM and MM1 and MM2. Also, MM uses IPsec and VMC uses PAPI. Similarly, under managed network, I can create my different sites, call it from Nashville. So I'll go and create a Nashville folder. For example, I'll create mobility controller, a cluster of mobility controllers under Nashville folder. Similarly, I could have another one in Dallas or in somewhere else that could be managed by the same mobility master group. So I can go ahead and create this folder structure and then deploy my VMCs under it. Any configuration I make under managed network will then push down to all my underneath subfolders, but any specific configuration I made under Nashville would then go to its own controller and will not propagate to other root folders. There are some few commands I'd like to show you. Show switches. All right, here we go. So I don't know, maybe mistyped. Been mistyping a lot. So here, this is a very useful command. It talks about from MM's perspective, it shows the members, their IP addresses. It shows the state they're in and whether the configuration has been updated. You can also use a database synchronize command to manually synchronize the configurations. Make sure to do the manual synchronization from the master at all times so your configurations are not wiped by mistaken. For your knowledge, here are the list of databases MMs sync between each other using the IPsec. All right, I think Next video, I guess I'll go ahead and install my VMCs for Nashville data center, and I'll go and create two of them and then tell you what is all needed for that. So stay tuned.